Okay. One last minute, I'll just say, and then we'll jump in. So we won't keep you all waiting. Okay, I am going to suggest we go ahead and get started tonight. Thank you all for joining us. A couple of words here at the beginning, just in terms of the meeting and the protocols. The meeting will be recorded tonight so that folks who were unable to attend might be able to learn a bit more about our programs. So please note that. In general, some of the meeting controls have been disabled because of the nature of this as an open meeting. There will be an opportunity later if you have specific questions. There will be a way in which we can do that. But to get things started, I am Bradley Walters. I'm the graduate program coordinator for the University of Florida School of Architecture. I'm also an associate professor in the School of Architecture. Based on the folks that I've seen in the meeting, there are several of you that I've worked with directly, and of course, a number of you who I have not yet worked with. I haven't checked to see if people have arrived in the last couple of minutes, but I can note and would like to note that our director, Frank Bosworth, is joining us tonight. We will likely be joined by a few other faculty over the course of the evening as well. The specifics of the program that I'm going to talk about tonight, of course, are looking ahead to where we may be a year from now, because many of you are applying for and may be considering applying for the fall 2021 class. But in the current context, we're of course living with a number of issues associated not just with the coronavirus, but of course with a wide range of social stressors, things that separate us from each other in some cases, but in other cases, things that make it all the more important that we look for opportunities to come together, to create and to define meaning in our world. With the issues of social distancing and social separation in particular, I think many of us have found a kind of renewed need to consider the places in which we spend our time and the ways in which we might facilitate more direct human contact. To kind of set the table for our discussion tonight, I'd like to share with you some of the stewards, the champions, thinkers and makers that make our program possible and that in particular engage our graduate students. And whenever I talk about stewards, of course, there's the stewardship of the school itself and the resources that we're entrusted with. But I also see us as stewards of education and in particular of what it means to be an architect today. And we truly are champions for students and their success. To begin with our college leadership, here is our dean and professor, Chimay Anumba, our associate deans, Dr. Meg Portillo and Abdul Chini. Those are some of the key folks in the dean's office who directly engage graduate student education at the University of Florida. Dr. Portillo in particular is charged with working on research and assisting graduate students in particular who are involved in that mission. I've also included on this slide another person in the dean's office, Dr. Kung, who is an important part of our global outreach and global education mission. He helps in particular with international students and some of our international programs. So for those of you who are international students, he will probably be a part of the admissions process for you. As we zoom into the School of Architecture itself, the faculty leadership team of the school includes Dr. Bosworth, who I introduced just briefly a moment ago. He is a part of teaching in a very direct way, but of course helping to manage the entirety of the school. But he also specifically engages and directs those students who are working on the IPAL program. That's the Integrated Path to Architectural Licensure. It provides us with a way to bridge directly to the profession. I'll touch on that in a little more detail later. Of course, myself, in addition to my teaching and administrative roles within the school, I function as the NCARB licensing advisor for our graduate students. That means that I help our students to understand the issues of licensure, the processes that they will work through to achieve success in that mission. I included Professor Mark McLaughlin here, who teaches some of our grad coursework, but also explicitly coordinates the undergraduate program at UF. And Stephen Bender, who is the acting program director for City Lab Orlando. He's an alumnus of our program, as well as Harvard, but spends most of his time in the Orlando facility. There are other faculty who are entrusted with specific obligations in terms of managing certain programs within the school. And these are all programs that directly engage our graduate students. Charlie Haley manages the PhD cohort. Stephen Grant is the program director for the Themed Environments Integration program based in Orlando. Nancy Clark is really working on the MSAS in sustainable architecture and more broadly sustainable design. She also is one of the directors of the Center for Hydro-Generated Urbanism. Dr. Azad is really the force behind our acoustics program and is working to continue to build and expand that program. And Nina Hofer heads the pedagogy program at UF, as well as teaching methods and a number of studio courses. There are other faculty as well. John Mays, who is running the graduate core program. That's a program that's explicitly shaped for students coming from non-architectural backgrounds. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. Dr. Noel, who has joined us starting this year, is working in the area of computational design, along with Professor Lee Soo Wong, also working in computational design. And then I included Sarah Gamble, who is working on issues of community design and working to kind of lead our efforts there, as well as Jeff Carney, who's a part of FIBER. That's the Florida Institute of Building Environmental Resilience, but he's also a professor in the School of Architecture. In terms of the really important people, they are these 5 folks that make up our administrative team in the school. Mary Kramer is our office manager. She her work includes finances and GTA appointments. So she has direct contact with our grad students. Cheryl McIntosh, who I gave a gold star to here, simply because she is the primary point of contact for admissions inquiries for all graduate students. And so she's someone who you probably already know of, or maybe have seen on our website, but she will be the one who coordinates receipt of admissions documents. She follows up with any document requests. Working closely with her is Maggie Hayes, who is specifically charged with the admissions process for our City Lab Orlando students. And then making everything happen in the office outside of these specific obligations. Lisa Haynes and Janelle Jaquay are part of, they round out our administrative team. I cannot underscore the importance of these folks, not just for our operational support, but really for your student support and how you might move through our program. So I'd like to begin with a question of what is graduate school? Because for some of us, we may not have an idea, or we may have quite a range of different ideas. And so just to say it in a succinct way that I can, I would say that it is making that matters. And in terms of what we do at UF, we're looking for ways to advance research in a deep and meaningful way. What you see here is the wind tunnel that's part of the Powell Family Structures and Materials Laboratory, where we can model some of the issues of terrain, which can be established through these movable components, as well as velocity of wind. But in terms of making that matters, there are many different ways in which we engage that. Another important example is the work of Professor Martha Cohen, as well as others, Nancy Clark in particular, who have engaged with the people and the schools of Puerto Rico over the last several years, through a number of workshops and meetings to help the people of Puerto Rico to literally restart their economy and rebuild after some of the hurricanes over the last couple of years. Making that matters also means learning how to work with materials in a very direct way, how we can take advantage of material possibilities for both expressive purposes, certainly spatial purposes, but also to recognize the kind of environmental footprint of the things that we work with, positive and negative impacts of material and resource use. And so we spend time in the graduate program working on not just how do I make representational representations of a future architecture, but how do I make things at a full scale? And making that matters also includes direct engagement with people of the community. In this case, these are some projects that Charlie Haley has led. The one on the left also included Donna Cohen, Professor Donna Cohen. But these are some of the projects that have happened over the last few years. Some have explicitly engaged our graduate students, and some from time to time will also include our undergrads. If I step back and think about graduate education more broadly, I think that it's about asking and addressing hard questions. I think it's understanding and working on difficult problems, addressing complexity in context, programs, and technical or performative aspects of design. And we're looking to engage history and culture, science and technology, analog, digital, speculative, and built. I think that graduate school is and should be intense, but hopefully also immensely rewarding. We're interested in preparing you for practice in ways that are both broad and highly specific. I think that UF's program is centered in making that matters. We advocate for learning through doing. Research is central to your graduate education. We see it as a necessary preparation for professional practice, as well as, of course, work in academia or more broad research practices. How can you do work that matters to you, to your community, to our shared discipline, and to humanity? We see that as an important question that we want to see you engage as students, and that we want to see you take ownership of that and define the work that you're going to do, both in the program as well as looking beyond. And for me, the image from Alciato's emblem book from 1546 is an interesting one for us because it reminds us of the possibility of seeing with our hands, and the idea that we can learn and build a kind of facility in making and in thinking that allows for that kind of additional way of seeing both the work of our hands as well as the world at large. This slide, areas of faculty research, is truly a kind of partial look. I am most certain that I've omitted a number of very important things that I could expand upon and tell you more about, but just to give you a sense of the character of the faculty and some of the work that's being done, I put this together to say that there are faculty who are working in the issues of environmental resilience. I'd mentioned Jeff Carney before, but also Ryan Charson, who's a part of the faculty, as well as several faculty from other disciplines in the college. There's the Center for Hydro-Generated Urbanism with Martha Cohen and Nancy Clark. Folks in our faculty who are working on urbanism and community design, acoustics, computational design, pedagogy, materials making, high performance building, history, theory, vernacular sustainability, African architecture. These are some of the areas of research that are happening right now in the school, and some of the faculty who are a part of that. And you'll see that there are faculty who bridge between some of these, who work across a couple of these areas of research, in addition to some who are focused quite specifically on one of them. A key to success as you're looking ahead to graduate school, either at UF or elsewhere, I would encourage you to engage faculty early, build on their knowledge to further your own, seek out opportunities to write, publish, and present with them, look for grant opportunities that you might pursue with faculty. Every one of those things is something that I would encourage you to take on. If you are interested in joining us at Florida, ultimately, these are things that I would be encouraging you to do so that you are taking ownership of your education and you're helping to drive the research that you might be a part of. This year has been quite a year so far. I'm sure it has more surprises in store for us, but one of the things that we've reflected on this year has to do with the words of Representative John Lewis. He said, when you see something that's not right, you must say something, you must do something. Democracy is not a state, it is an act, and each generation must do its part to help build what we call the beloved community, a nation and world society at peace with itself. And as we have reflected on those words, we've looked at our program, we've looked at our curriculum, we've looked at the way in which we work with each other, the way in which we engage students. We've looked at our communities. We've looked at marginalized communities, people who aren't a part of any of those discussions or have been underrepresented in all of those discussions. And we've redoubled our efforts to make a more perfect school, to build on what he described as this beloved community. In part, we're doing that through this rededication to diversity and looking for opportunities to build a more diverse faculty, a more diverse staff, and a more diverse student body, to engage peoples and other voices, and also to look really deeply within the teaching that we're doing on a day-to-day basis, especially at the graduate level, and ask questions about architecture, difficult questions about architecture, about the histories and the legacies of the people who have defined and written those histories. The programs of studying that we have at UF, there are quite a number of them, but if I start to distill those down, there are two that are listed here, but there are three basic categories that will address all of us that are looking at graduate education in architecture. At UF, we have a Master of Architecture professional degree. We have a Master of Science in Architectural Studies, and we have a PhD in Design, Construction, and Planning. Those are the three basic trajectories that we offer at the graduate level. Within those, we have a series of different variations. So for instance, in the Master of Architecture professional degree program, we have one path that is what we will typically refer to as the core program, which is a 100-credit program that's really shaped around students who are arriving for their graduate studies without a prior architectural degree. For those of you who have completed or in the process of completing a pre-professional architecture program, you have an opportunity to be admitted into our advanced program, which is a 52-credit program. The 52-credit advanced program is typically completed in 2 years. The core program is typically completed in 4 years, although there are all manner of variations that allow that 4-year to be shortened some. Within either of those paths, there are concurrent degrees possible. Up to 9 credits can be shared between degree programs. One of those that is commonly pursued is a concurrent degree with building construction and architecture. There's another path that some students pursue, which is with urban and regional planning and architecture, but other possibilities exist as well. Within the Master of Architecture programs, there are certificates that are available in sustainable design, historic preservation, and themed environments integration, the last of those TEI in Orlando. In addition to our Master of Architecture degree programs, we have the Master of Science in Architectural Studies degree. That is typically a post-professional degree, although in some cases, a professional degree is not required for admission. But all of the MSAS degrees are centered around very specific research areas. The largest, most substantial program in the MSAS degree is our themed environments integration program that takes place in Orlando. But we also have a very active sustainable design concentration. We have a historic program in pedagogy that we're working on formalizing, which is also an MSAS in pedagogy, as well as acoustics, computational design, community design, and a new degree in environment and health that is currently being developed. For each of the MSAS degrees, there is a minimum of 32 credits, including a thesis, or what we could refer to as a pilot, which is a project in lieu of a thesis. And up to 30 credits of the MSAS degree can count towards a 90 credit PhD degree program if you chose to pursue that path. The curriculum of the Master of Architecture program looks like this. On the left half of the screen is the preparatory, the first 2 years of the core or foundations program, which you can see total 48 credits. On the right-hand side is the advanced coursework that totals 52 credits. And just to orient you on this diagram, the yellow at the top are the studio courses that run in more or less a continuous sequence. The green are the history and theory courses. The kind of light blue or slight purple are the technology courses. On the right half side, you see the electives that have dashed lines, and then two other things. One, the professional practice class, which takes place in your final semester as a graduate student, allows us to prepare you in a very direct way for moving into practice following graduation. And just above it, the orange leading to the orange-red color, those are the courses that support the thesis or pilot project. So research methods, research prep, and then the thesis itself. There is a note here about study abroad, which I'll expand on here, to say that we have programs in Vicenza, Italy, in East Asia, as well as the Caribbean or Mexico. Each of those programs happens within the last 2 years of your graduate studies. So for this particular year, we had to suspend those programs to manage the risk to our students and faculty, but we are planning to resume those programs starting in the spring, assuming that it is at all possible. For students who are interested in those programs, the East Asia or Mexico programs both happen in the summer between these 2 years. Those are a total of 9 credits in each of those programs, 6 that are allocated for the studio, and then there's a dedicated history theory seminar that goes hand in hand with it. So those are both 9 credits. Those are a part of the core curriculum. So you don't have to add additional coursework if you choose to do an independent, or if you choose to do a study abroad program. The study abroad is within the core class structure. What that means, for instance, in the case of East Asia, the East Asia program, you would be taking the equivalent of your last studio as a part of East Asia. You'd be taking one of your electives as a part of East Asia, which allows you to either lighten your course load for the other semesters, or to graduate early if you wish to. In addition to the 2 summer travel programs, we also have the Vicenza, Italy program, which takes place for grad students in the fall of the final year. So that's a G3. Again, G3 is an short form of Advanced Graduate Studio 3. As a part of the Vicenza program, students also take a graduate lighting seminar with Giovanni Traverso, who's an architect in the Veneto. We also have an Italian language and culture class, and we complete the MRP or thesis prep class in Vicenza for students who attend that program. Beginning with your class, actually, students will have an option of completing their thesis or pilot as a collaborative studio-based research project, as well as options to work independently with a faculty chair. So we're seeing that as an opportunity to gather the strengths of several of us, several faculties, several students who can work together in a collaborative way and leverage each other's strengths to create even more robust, meaningful work. I mentioned earlier that we have a program that allows for an integrated path to architectural licensure. This is a program that it was initiated across the country, the concept initiated by NCARB, which is the organization that works with all of the individual state boards across the country to help manage and align the licensure processes that are regulated on a state-by-state basis. For those of you who have worked in a firm previously, who have completed some of your architectural experience program requirements, you could be eligible to participate in this program. The big advantage of IPAL is what I would suggest it's twofold. One, that you are able to begin taking your exams, your licensing exams while you are still a student. And the second big advantage is it gives you an opportunity to work with us and with your colleagues in the program as you are working your way through those exams. So there's the opportunity to create a more robust support structure that can help you move towards licensure. As I noted here, if you may be interested, if you think this sounds like it could be a fit, please talk with me or with Director Bosworth, and we can give you more information about that. Okay, spaces for invention and the places in which we do the work of the program. The School of Architecture on the main campus in Gainesville is really our kind of base of operations. This is a photograph from last year. For those of you who are on campus or have been on campus in the last couple of months, you know that right now this field is occupied with construction equipment that's renovating, updating the building, including a new roof over the studio spaces. But we look forward to getting back to the building starting in the spring. The construction work that's going on now should be completed by January or the very end of December. And we're looking forward to being fully back in the building in the spring. But in the architecture building, one of the spaces that is perhaps best for reflective work is the set of studios that sit in this crescent that look back towards the center of campus and Century Tower on the right of the slide. It is this sweep of studios that house our graduate students and their studio spaces. So we like giving that to our grad students. The campus is much larger than our one building. It's actually much larger than the image that I have on the slide right now. But what you're seeing here is a part of our campus, and I've identified Rinker Hall, which is where the School of Construction Management is housed, as well as the architecture building, the fine arts complex, and then off to the right, Infinity Hall. These are the buildings in Gainesville that house most of our workspaces, including classrooms, design studios, as well as fabrication spaces. We do also have off of this image you see at the far right reference to the Catalyst building, which is the base of operations for the Fiber Research Group, as well as some design build workshops that are housed out there. In Orlando, right in downtown Orlando, we have our City Lab facility. It's housed in the Fairwinds building on West Central. And this is a wonderful base of operations for the students who have design studios, classrooms, a library, administrative spaces in Orlando. It gives us an opportunity to engage with the local community in a lot of different ways, not just planning and design, construction, of course, which we do, but also in terms of the professional community and people who are working on a day-to-day basis, who have jobs in the city, many of whom will choose to join us at City Lab Orlando, which allows them to both work and pursue their educational degrees. In addition to City Lab Orlando, we do have a facility in Sarasota. City Lab Sarasota has studios, classrooms, a gallery. We use it for some workshops and meetings, as well as exhibits from time to time. And we have our studios and classroom spaces in Vicenza, Italy as well. Those, I don't have the exact number now, but I think we've been there for about 35 years, maybe 38 years of that. We're just about right about there in terms of the number of years. But this is our base of operations in Italy. And the studio space, the building that we're in, the former mill, has a large volume that we use as the studio. But there's a separate library space, faculty offices, and gallery or classroom. The study abroad programs, the other summer programs, this one for the program in Mexico, you see some of the students hard at work as a part of that. And then the East Asia, actually, I put in an image from the Paris program, which is a shorter program, but also that takes place in the summer, and that some of our grad students are a part of. And then finally, the program in East Asia. In this case, the tag here says Hong Kong and China. The image on the screen is not from Hong Kong, but rather from Central China. And that program, the East Asia program, will move slightly from year to year. So they've been going to Japan, to Hong Kong, Singapore. From time to time, they are in Central China, and most recently, they've been in South Korea, Singapore, and Japan. Whenever we look out at places like these, places that we go, or even places much closer to home, whenever we think about architecture as a cultural practice, we need to recognize the historical, social, political context of a place and work on how to come to terms with that place, use that as an opportunity to reveal meanings and opportunity. As Mario Gooden said in this quote, it's a possibility to reaffirm presence in life, recognition of existential meaning and knowledge, the confirmation of life, liberty, and a pursuit of happiness. But I also appreciate this quote from Dr. Sharon Sutton that reminds us that equity is not about bringing historically marginalized populations into an existing institution. It requires fundamental structural change in the affairs of that institution. And that's part of what I think we as a school have really taken on as a mission. Part of what we've been asking ourselves is, how do we reimagine architecture and architectural education? How do we engage some of the hard problems of our time? And in a very direct way, a couple of things that we've started or that we're doing this year. The current advanced graduate 1 studios are working with charged edges and thresholds. In particular, we're looking at land ports of entry, issues of immigration and movements of people across national borders. In the case of this studio, we're looking at a land port of entry in San Luis, Arizona, as well as in Madawaska, Maine. We're looking at the contrast between those culturally. We're looking at the contrast between them historically. We're looking at issues of materiality, of light, of assemblies, of landscape, and we're looking at issues of climate across these 2 very different borders. We see this as an opportunity for the students, and what we've seen so far is an opportunity to engage some of the very difficult discussions around race, around equity, around social and cultural histories. In addition, this semester, right now, we have 3 different studios that are engaging issues of history, culture, social equity, as a part of the Advanced Graduate 3 class. So one of those is looking at questions of representation and culture and museums of the 21st century. It's specifically looking at proposals for the National Museum of the American Latino, which is planned for the Smithsonian Institute on the National Mall. So we have a group of students and faculty who are working on that. Questions of representation, not in the way in which we make a drawing, but representation in terms of the voices that are heard, the voices at the table. Professor Jeff Carney and his studio are looking at centering civic spaces, bridging the divide of a small southern town. They're working in the panhandle of Florida. Professor Nancy Clark is working on issues of resilience and environmental equity rooted in Jacksonville. And she's looking at a series of urban strategies, including work around the Emerald Trail there in Jacksonville. Again, all of these are trying to unpeel and unravel some of the issues of marginalized communities, of voices that have gone perhaps unheard or been mischaracterized or misrepresented. I may be a little ahead, but I'm going to say coming soon, because I think it is in the works. As a part of this, not just to say City Lab Orlando sounds good, why don't we do City Lab Jacksonville? We see an opportunity, and we've been invited by the community leaders in Jacksonville to be a part of the community there. We're still talking with them about the particulars of that and how we might give that shape. But the architectural community, the cultural communities of Jacksonville have recognized that we can bring meaningful contributions to the city, and we're eager to be a part of it with them. Let's see. Life in the time of COVID, I thought, especially for those of you who are looking at Florida from far away, we are living in complicated times where the things that we touch, the things that we eat, raise some questions and anxieties. It's also a time where much of our of our communication has shifted from in-person to digital means, including, of course, this session, which would traditionally have been in person. And we've had to rethink some of our social interactions, some of our behaviors, including, of course, mask wearing on campus, as well as in most public places here in Alachua County in Florida. This is a map of new cases of average daily cases, sorry, from just this week. This was from the New York Times on the 16th of November. And the headline was, I think, maybe yesterday's headline, COVID-19, US records 1 million new cases in a week. I think as we look through or past that headline, on the left-hand side here, the top chart shows daily new cases in the US. And of course, we are all quite alarmed by the rise over the last couple of months. Down below it, you see the daily new cases in Florida. And what we have seen in Florida more explicitly is a bigger surge in the middle of the summer from July to August or mid-August, and then a slower arc up here over the last couple of months. Still an increase, to be sure, but a smaller one than what we're seeing at the national level. And then just to give you a little more detailed information about Florida and the university here, what you see on the right is the cases on campus and the cases that have been experienced by people that are a part of our university community. And here, just before September 1st, actually August 31st is the first day of classes on campus. You can see a rather pronounced spike that followed that. But in the months since, what we've seen on campus is a moderating of that peak. We did have a kind of second peak, but then over the last couple of weeks, we've actually seen a decrease. I'm not showing you this to promise that our numbers will stay low, but just to give you a sense of where things are literally right now. In addition to that, you can see on the left-hand side the number of incidences of the virus in Alachua County, averaging 83 daily cases or 31 cases per 100,000 people. And what you see on the right are the campus tests. The gray are the negative test, the bright orange are the positive tests, which are currently averaging about 3% positivity. For reference, the CDC, or sorry, the World Health Organization recommends that positivity number stay below 5% as a precondition for reopening, or which we are satisfying presently. Again, no promise about what the future may hold. There is a website where you can follow this information and track the progress of University of Florida and our campus community. You can track this through a testing dashboard. I gave you a couple of images here, but for instance, on the left-hand side, you can see that there are currently in isolation or quarantined about 790 people, 93 people, who are affiliated with the university in some way, either employees, students, or an affiliate organization. The response at the University of Florida has been through UF Health and a program that is referred to as the Screen, Test, and Protect program, which was put in place to identify folks who might be contagious, and then to create opportunities for them to quarantine safely and then eventually return to campus. But as a part of the Screen, Test, and Protect program, where the university is tracing contacts and then working to provide accommodations for folks who may need them during the duration of a quarantine if they become sick. There are also a number of behavioral practices that the University of Florida has put in place for anyone who is on campus, both students and faculty. And the primary restrictions have to do with physical distancing, maximizing the space between people wherever possible, and then wearing masks, especially whenever we cannot be physically separated, but encouraging mask wearing even when we might have appropriate distances between us. As a part of that and everything associated with the response to COVID, over the last semester, a number of our School of Architecture classes were conducted digitally, and we relied on, in particular, Canvas, which is our e-learning tool, as well as platforms, the Zoom for online courses, Zoom and Miro, which were used pretty consistently across the studios. There were a few studios who were using Microsoft Teams as well, but those are minor compared to those using these platforms. Beginning in the spring semester, we are anticipating that most of our student body will be back on campus presently. Of course, that is also subject to change. As a part of the opportunities for our graduate students, we do look for and encourage strategies for building community. And there are two in particular that are shaped around our graduate student body. The first, which some of you may have heard of, is Vorkurs. That is the publication of the graduate students at the University of Florida School of Architecture. The second is Tau Sigma Delta. That's a National Honor Society in Architecture and Allied Arts. Both of those are really centered around our graduate students in the program. In addition, there are a number of organizations that function primarily at the undergraduate level at UF, including AIAS and NOMAS, and we're looking to expand those to include more of our graduate students. For those of you who have been a part of those organizations, you can appreciate how they add so much to the community of learners and thinkers. And of course, we have a great relationship with AIA Gainesville, which our graduate students in particular engage. Vorkurs, I mentioned a moment ago, is a great opportunity for you to give shape and definition to your education through reflective writing and research. It has been recognized by the Graham Foundation for Advanced Studies in the Fine Arts, was a recipient of Graham Foundation grants in 2017 and 2019. I would encourage all of you who may join us as graduate students to consider being a part of the Vorkurs publication team. In addition, the Tau Sigma Delta chapter at UF was established in 1967. It was a robust part of the program in its early days. It had gone quiet for several years, and then we've just over the course of the last year restarted Tau Sigma Delta as an opportunity for our graduate students to have a place to celebrate good work and camaraderie. Okay, finally, are you ready? Are you ready for everything that I've just shared with you? Are you ready for graduate studies? Are you ready to apply? The application process at the University of Florida is outlined here. First thing that I would point out on the left, the application deadline is the 1st of January. There's a link just below there that will take you to everything you need to know about applying. Although we do adhere to that date, if you cannot make that date for any number of reasons, we can still consider late applications on a space available basis. And so I'd encourage you, if there's some difficulty, that you reach out and let me know what's going on, and we can see what's possible. But the application requirements are going to fall into 3 basic categories. The first group are a series of documents that you submit online directly to the University of Florida graduate admissions. The first part of that is your online application. And on the online application, there are 2 small but important notes that I'd like for you to see. First, there is a space for you to self-report your GPA. We would ask that you please do that. And I say that because whenever you don't self-report, it delays the review of your application. The second is there's a question that asks, are you applying for readmission to UF? And for anyone who has not attended graduate school at UF, you should be marking no in response to that. Sometimes our students that may have attended University of Florida as an undergrad see that question and think that they are applying for readmission. But in fact, this only applies to students who have been a graduate student at UF who've taken some time off and are now asking to be readmitted. In addition to the online application, there's an application fee of $30. And along with your application, you'll upload your letter of intent and a resume or a curriculum vitae. In the letter of intent, you should detail your motives, goals, why are you pursuing a graduate education in architecture, as well as any intended focus or specialization. What are you looking for, and what do you bring with you? Your CV is relatively straightforward, a summary of your education, of any work experience, awards, recognition, publication. In addition to those documents that get submitted directly to UF, we also ask that you submit a portfolio of your previous design studio work, and that you submit that via email as an email attachment directly to Cheryl McIntosh. And again, this is all detailed under the application instructions, but you'll see that that's something that you have to send separately. The portfolio should illustrate strength in conceptual design, critical thinking, represent knowledge of architectural conventions, including plan, section, elevation, 3-dimensional diagrams, as well as renderings of various kinds. Use the strongest work that you have to make your case as a part of your portfolio. We're looking for quality over quantity. And I would encourage you, even if you are coming to our program from a different background, maybe you haven't had design studio work and you're looking towards an architectural degree program, I would still encourage you to put together a portfolio, even if it relies more on photography or other kinds of visual constructions that you might have made. Finally, the third part of the application process includes things that you will request to be sent to UF on your behalf. So the first usually is the graduate record examination, the GRE score. You are all lucky this year because the GRE is not required for fall 2021 admissions. So if you've already taken it, we would love for you to send the scores to us. But if you have not taken it, you don't have to for this year. If you are an applicant from outside the US, you will need to take a test of English as a foreign language and submit those scores. You should ask your undergraduate program to send official transcripts from any educational institutions you've attended. And then finally, you should contact 3 people who can write recommendations, letters of recommendations on your behalf. These should be people who can assess your academic performance or your professional experience, but we're explicitly looking for people who can speak to the possibilities of your success as a graduate student. Sometimes professional acquaintances can do that, sometimes they can't. So make sure that there are people who can look at you and write about your perspectives as a graduate student. While the letters of recommendation will be sent directly by the reviewers, as a part of your application, you'll have to identify who those recommenders are. And so when you're completing your online application, you'll provide names and contact information, and the school will reach out to those individuals directly for their letters. Before one last thing. So in terms of timeline, I didn't type it here for you, but we're asking that you submit no later than January 1st. We will be reviewing applications starting literally within the week after that. And we will be targeting to get responses out to prospective students by the middle of February to the end of February. That's our target time frame. We want you to have as much time as possible to reflect, to make the important decisions about your education. The University of Florida, as well as a number of other programs, will ask that you respond affirmatively or that you decline our offer by April 15th. So if we said January 1st for the application, hopefully by March the 1st, you'll hear from us one way or the other. And then by April 15th, we would like to hear back from you. As a part of our admissions process, we will make awards for merit-based scholarships as well as graduate teaching assistantships. So merit-based scholarships, those are funds that we are able to allocate directly to you to assist in your expenses. The graduate teaching assistantships are a little bit different. Those come with a tuition waiver for 9 credits per semester, as well as a stipend. So you don't have to pay tuition for some of your classes, and you get a paycheck in addition to that. We have a relatively small pool of those, but we award them based on the promise of the portfolios and the applications for admission. So whenever you get our letter of offer in the end of February, beginning of March, what you'll see is that we'll either accept or decline or accept or deny your admission request. You'll see with that the specific program that we are admitting you into. So for instance, if you have applied for advanced standing, that will be spelled out in the letter. Or if you are a core student, that will similarly be spelled out. And any of the merit-based scholarships or GTA awards will also be included so that you can get a good sense of the expenses that you may have as a graduate student. If you receive our letter of offer and you have questions, you'll see my name will be on that letter, as well as all of my contact information. And I would encourage you to reach out and discuss with me the issues, the questions that you may have. One note in terms of the application, one part of it that is sometimes overlooked is the letter of intent. And what I would just say about that is there are a number of things that I wrote out here, but in the yellow, when I pick up a letter of intent, I'm looking for you to open a window into your mind, a place where I can discover how you see the world and your role in it. It should be personal, but not trite, effusive, or overly sentimental. Do not resort to academic or professional jargon, but rather seek clarity and brevity. Be focused, be precise, to the point, and be specific. And I could say that in specific reference to the letter of intent, but I could also say it with reference to your entire application and the portfolio itself. Use it as a chance to make your case for admission, but don't feel like you have to go beyond that. Okay, so that's what I have for you tonight as an introduction to our programs, to the application process. I know that the let me see what I have to do here. I think if you have particular questions tonight, what I can do, I think, is allow the chat, and I can then either respond to things that you might want to note in the chat, or if you have a question that you'd like to ask, I can enable your microphone as well. Any questions? By the way, while you maybe think for a moment, if you have questions after we're done tonight, I would like to encourage you to reach out to me. My email is bradley.walters@ufl.edu. If you don't jot that down or remember, you can find me on the website. You can also reach out to Cheryl McIntosh. You can reach out to Mary Kramer or Director Bosworth. If you are specifically interested in opportunities in Orlando and you want to know some particulars of how some of those programs work, by all means, feel free to reach out directly to Stephen Bender or Director Bosworth or me, frankly. And any of us can help get you the answers that you're looking for. Okay. Other questions? Any questions? I see. Yes, let me see. Maxim?
Yes, hi.
Yes.
So when you were talking about the MSAS program, I saw that part of that program, there was an option for concentration in community design.
Yes.
However, I didn't see that that sort of facet was like in there for the MARC, for the NCARB accreditation. I was wondering if that is something that I could include into my master's degree, if that's something that I wanted to study.
So as of today, literally today, I would say it's not in place. But we are working on that, and it may very well be in place by next year. We're working to formalize a number of those concentrations that would allow for a certificate path to be pursued, like the certificate that I described in sustainability or sustainable design. that would allow for the certificate to be pursued as an MArch student, as a part of your regular, as an advanced student, it'd be your 52 credits. You could do the whole of the certificate within that. But again, as of today, it's not formalized yet, but I'm sharing it with you tonight because it is something that we're looking to have in place for your group.
Okay. And if I wanted to do sort of in terms of for thesis for the second year, is that something that students are allowed to sort of pick their own thesis, or do professors or do students pick from a range of professors that already have thesis topics that are already pre-made or decided beforehand?
So it's the way I would describe it is it's a little bit of both, meaning that that in your research methods class, all of our faculty come and meet with all of the graduate students. We make presentations, we talk about what we are doing and how we approach research in the final year. As a part of that, some of the faculty have very specific research trajectories that they will share with you. They'll say, I'm working on this, I'm interested in doing I'm working on that project. Maybe there's a funded research project, or maybe it's unfunded publication. So some faculty have a very specific trajectory, and you could say, that sounds good, I want to go do that. There are some other faculty who are who approach the thesis in a different way, that say, let's start with you and where you see your research headed. I think both of those are valuable structures, and frankly, today you might feel like you're leaning one way, and you might feel you're leaning another way a year from now. But we do both, and we have faculty that do both. It is our full faculty who are engaged in the thesis process. So it's not, there are some schools where it's a few faculty, or maybe like this year is my year and next year is Director Bodsworth's year. But in the case of UF, it is our full faculty who are part of that, which means if you have a great idea for a thesis, and you come and talk to me because you want to work with me, then we make it happen. You go and talk to Bodsworth because he's a good fit for you, then it can be that he can work with you.
Perfect. Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
I had like one other question regarding to the application. I did see that you mentioned that the GRE was waived, or it wasn't required for this year.
Yes.
Is that something that the university is not accepting those scores, or it's something that's more on the optional side? And if it's on the optional side, would it hinder our application some sort of way if we don't submit a score?
So it is on the optional side, and it will not hinder your application if you don't submit a score.
Okay.
So if you applied and there was no score for the GRE, we would still review your submission. Okay. Just fine. So you shouldn't see it as a negative. If you, by the same token, if you submit a GRE score, we would look at that like we would review GRE scores every year, meaning that we are looking for a minimal level of performance, but we're not basing our admissions decisions on it beyond that. Meaning that if your score was 50 points higher than somebody else's score, we're probably not going to shape our admissions offer around that single criteria. We may, if your score is 50 points higher and lots of other things are exceptional, then we would consider it as a factor in that way.
Okay, thank you.
I see a question about, is there a set criteria for what to include in the portfolio submission for a student with no formal academic background in architecture? What I would say in response is, that I, as someone looking at your application, I would be interested in seeing how you see the world. Now, how do you do that? What does that mean? Is it that I identify a half dozen pieces of art that somebody else made, but that I see and I reflect on, and that I find meaning in that, and you use those as a way to tell us about the way in which you're seeing the world? Is it that you are using photography not in a professional sense necessarily, although you could if that was your strength, but you could use images to help us understand the way in which you see space, the way you see color, the way you see light or depth. In that case, I would encourage you to collect those images and tell us something about them. So it isn't just like a flip book of pretty pictures, but use it as a way to say, here's an image, and this is what I'm seeing or thinking in response to it. It doesn't have to be a big document, doesn't have to be exhaustive. It can be relatively focused, but use it as a way to help us understand what is it that you are drawn to whenever you think about the possibilities of architecture. It could be images of buildings that you've seen or that you've been to, that other people designed, other people drew, or other people made. So it doesn't have to be something that I'm not needing you to show me how you can draw if that's not really your strength or something that you feel confident in at this point. Then I would say show us what helps us to understand the way in which you see the world. There's another question. If I'm looking to do a concurrent degree, is there flexibility in how I want to make my curriculum? So what I would say is that our curriculum has a good deal of flexibility within it, with a few exceptions. So there is a sequence of design studios that build in a sequential way. That really I need to unfold in a certain kind of order. Similarly, the three classes, the research methods, research prep to the thesis, those build one on the other. And we typically like for the professional practice class to happen in that last semester because of its direct relationship to your practice. That said, even the professional practice class can shift, and all of the other graduate coursework can move from semester to semester, meaning I can take my advanced structures in the fall, or I can take it in the spring. I can take my history theory elective in the fall or the spring, or I could even do a summer studio and take it in the summer. I could do my graduate 3 studio in Gainesville in the fall, or I could go to Vicenza in the fall, or I could do those 6 credits in the summer as a part of one of the travel programs. So we've intentionally created flexibility in the graduate curriculum to allow you to shape your degree path more explicitly. For many students, the undergraduate degree path is relatively prescriptive, and some students will work through those paths and kind of check all the boxes, and they're ready to graduate. Whenever you get to this level and you're considering a graduate education frankly in any field, but let's say in architecture, we want and expect you to approach it with a critical eye. We expect that you are going to be invested in your education, that you're going to want to give it some definition and shape. And so we want to open the opportunities for you to do that. And part of it is introducing flexibility to work around a class in another department, another college, to work around specific possibilities for dual degrees. Relative to that, the one last point I'd make is The University of Florida is, the tuition for our program is based on a per credit, meaning that the 52 credits of our advanced program or the 100 credits of the core program, those are all of the classes that you need for those specific paths. And whether you complete that coursework in 4 semesters, or if you decided you wanted to take 5 or 6 or 7 semesters for different reasons that needed to accommodate personal obligations, work, family, opportunities, there isn't an additional cost in terms of the tuition that you're responsible for. In other words, some places have a fixed per semester tuition cost. In the case of Florida, it's really based on the classes you're taking and the number of credits that you're taking. So if you do 52 credits in 2 years, it costs the same as if you take 52 credits in 3 years. Maybe there are additional costs for living expenses and other things, but I'm pointing that out because sometimes it is important for you to take a year off and go work, frankly, or sometimes it's important for you to work towards that other degree, or sometimes it's important for you to take time for family or other obligations. And we want to make it possible for you to do that without interrupting your degree. There's a question, is there a size restriction or limit for the portfolio in regards to file size or page limit? So the simple answer is there is no limit as long as it can be sent by email. I could tell you you should have it under 10 megs, but I've seen people submit things that are 15 or even more megs in size. In terms of page count, there's not a limit. So it could be that you have a 10-page portfolio. It could be that you have a 30 or 40-page portfolio or whatever. On that, what I would encourage you to say to yourself is it's not about quantity, but it's about the quality of the work. So if you have 10 really good things and 10 things that are just so-so, I would say just show us the 10 really good things. Don't say I need to include all 20 so that I have 20 things. And in terms of how you might organize that document and lay out the work, I would encourage you there to give yourself space. And in particular, recognize that most applications are reviewed, even in a non-COVID world, they're reviewed digitally, which means that if we can maximize our screen proportions, meaning that we're looking at a landscape orientation, then you should think about that as maybe a spread as a single page of your portfolio. Like if I was looking at a book and I said, like here, this is one of our issues of Forkers, right? The journal I described to you. You might say, here's a spread, and maybe this is one image in your portfolio, and it's formatted like a book. Maybe it's formatted like a book, but we look at this as one spread. And I say it that way because then this is one kind of image that puts a lot of information together next to each other. I would encourage you to think about it that way. Some of you will want to be able to print a hard copy for yourself or maybe for your academic advisors or faculty. And so sometimes it's nice to think of it as a book, even though the submission that you're going to make to us is a digital submission. But I would encourage you to not get information too small on the page or in the file. Recognize that we're going to be seeing this probably on screens that are that are less than 30 inches. Maybe they're 20 inches. Maybe they're even laptop screens or tablets for some people. So think about the size of your font, the size of your marks, the size of your images. And if you had the same amount of content, but you could squeeze it into, 1 page less or 2 pages less, or you could expand it to 1 page more or 2 pages more, I may err on the side of giving yourself a little more room. So the images might get a little bit bigger, or the text might have a little space to breathe, as opposed to saying, I'm going to squeeze more into it and make it really dense page. Other questions that I might address tonight? Okay, well, I know that we've been at it for a little while. Please do jot down, if you haven't already, jot down my email or phone or just name if you need to. And please do reach out to me if you come up with questions over the next few days or next few weeks. If there are things that would help you to understand certain aspects of our program, or if you have particular questions about the application process, I'd be happy to help. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all. And I will talk to you later, hopefully.